Hey everyone, welcome back. It is Icon here. Thank you so much for checking out another episode of Esports Analysis. So, a little bit of a different video today. Today we are hopping on board with SCUMP as we have the last couple days, as Chicago is going to battle against Detain, Insight, Bids, Maple, Chain, and Team Singularity. So, for whatever reason the case may be, we haven't really seen Chicago scrim against too many pro teams recently. And I don't know if it's because of the fact that we're so close to yet another competition, right? CDL Chicago is now a week away. So as this is being put out, it's Friday. So literally a week away will be the next CDL competition, which should have been the Chicago LAN, but of course we know what's happening there. But nevertheless, another top AM team. And the other thing that I'll say about this is that this scrim actually took place right before the FaZe Academy scrim took place that we uploaded yesterday. Now, the only thing about this one is that they only played one map. Actually, they played like 1.5 maps, and then something happened. They weren't able to finish it out, so that's when they went ahead and they switched over to scrimming all of the hard points, all the DOMs against FaZe Academy. But with this, let's go ahead. We've talked a little bit too long already. Let's go ahead. Let's hop into the analysis here. So as we get into this, the one thing that you'll notice right off the rip here is that when the map started off, Chicago did have that back spawn that you want to have for P1. And immediately, so literally SCUMP went mid-map. He went into bottom warehouse, and then he got killed. And then when he spawned on the other side. So it might have taken 15 seconds for Singularity to go ahead and flip this spawn. And the reason why I keep uploading this map is because I'm trying to get a sense of why Chicago isn't really all that successful at it. It seems like every time, even if they're scrimming teams like Paris or New York or teams like that you'd kind of expect them to be, and certainly these top AM teams, you just figure that they would have their way with top AM teams. But at least on this map, that's not really how it's going. But as we go ahead and rotate over to P3, they did do a pretty nice job of getting time inside of P1. So even though they got flipped for P2, they had that little bit of a safety valve there in the fact that they were able to get time inside of P1, so that now as it rotates to P3, we are 15 seconds into P3 and the game's tied. So the flip side of that would have been, well, if they got all that time inside of P1 and they were able to hold spawns for P2, now all of a sudden it would probably be like 100-10, right? It would be a complete beatdown already, and you'd be able to play a little bit more aggressive the rest of this map. But that's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and let's get back into what we're seeing on screen. If you're noticing SCUMP, where he just came up, he came up over at Forklift. And again, they're spawning out, right? As you leave P2, you want to go ahead, you want to push through warehouse, you want to get back-to-back yellow, and you want to hold down that spawn so that as it rotates from P3 to P4 to P5, you have those back spawns. And it seems like every time we're watching Chicago play this map recently, they keep getting flipped. And I can't quite pinpoint what it is. The obvious thing to say would be that they don't have enough presence inside of warehouse, because like we've drawn before, as teams that are dominant inside of P2 leave P2, they push out through bottom L, top L, and they get back to back yellow, right where SCUMP was just looking right there. So they're not being aware enough of bottom L and top L and warehouse side of the map. And they're not winning the gun battles on that side, because if they were winning those gun battles, they would be securing all those spawns back yellow for P5. But it does look like right now they're doing a really nice job of getting time inside of P4. So as I'm watching the minimap in the top left-hand corner, I do see the green arrows in the back. So all that signifies to me is that they were getting time inside of P4 and they were holding down these back spawns. So as the last 3 seconds tick off of P4, you're probably going to see at the end of the first set of rotations, Chicago's probably going to have a pretty big, a pretty substantial lead as we head into the second set of rotations. And if you think about it, they haven't been that dominant yet, right? In terms of P1, they were able to get inside of P1, but they weren't able to flip after that. So they did a nice job inside of P1. When it came to P2, they got flipped. We already talked about that. When it came to P3, they kind of split that one, right? To begin, Singularity had a lot of the time inside of P3, and then towards the end, SCUMP was able to get in. And then in P4, they did a nice job at the latter half of P4 of getting in, getting time. And now that there's 20 seconds left, you can see that all of Chicago has already gone on rotation. So they pushed out the left-hand side of the map where Singularity was spawning, and they were just trying to get to back green, over to P2. And it looks like it's really hard to see. This is where I love having the mini-map from the CDL matches, because you can see exactly where those people are at. As the green triangles were coming up there, you saw that they were coming up to the right of SCUMP, but you couldn't quite see where those back green arrows were. It was Envoy that was back in the corner, and that's kind of what he does, right? He's the one on Chicago that will rotate early, and if he gets on the flank, he'll just kind of hide behind boxes or in a corner somewhere, so that when the perfect opportunity strikes, he can go ahead, he can get a two-piece, and then as his teammates come up off a spawn, they spawn back behind him. But that's not what happened. Now, as we go over to the second set of rotations, remember we said with P5 that was going to give Chicago a pretty substantial lead, which they have. Now they're kind of in trouble, though, because there's 20 seconds left on the current hardpoint. So if they get that, if Team Singularity gets those 20 points, then it'll be like a 30-point game. However, it does look like they might have been able to flip. We'll see where SCUMP comes up here. I was just paying attention to kind of the green arrows, and it did look like that last push, as SCUMP and the rest of his team were pushing out mid-map, they were able to get over by burning car and flip out the spawns. So now as it's about to rotate back to P2, I would expect again, although I don't know, look at where SCUMP, so SCUMP just died again, and now look where he spawned. He spawned over at green. So even though they have control of the hardpoint, that was a really weird spawn. Just kind of seeing what's transpiring here. A lot of kills just went on the board for Team Singularity. And again, SCUMP is spawning in that same spot. Even though his team is pushed up, and even though they're getting all the time in the current hardpoint, he's still spawning out. And what that tells me, let me go ahead and pause this just for a second. The mini-map that's right above my head and underneath these SCUMPs, what that tells me is that as Chicago was sitting inside of P2, they were holding down this spawn, right? Remember, we were looking at the kill feed, and a lot of it was lighting up red. So a lot of kills from Team Singularity there. So as they were pushing through P2, they were dying on this half of the map, which left them with, obviously they can't spawn in that location. So they were either spawning in this back corner, or as you saw with SCUMP, he was spawning out towards green. So even though Team Singularity, who was inside of P1, was pushing out and was getting kills in this area of the map, since they weren't able to actually get inside of P2 or push through P2 and get coverage on the other side of the map, then that's what kept them still spawning around P1, and that's what forced SCUMP spawning over by P4. So that's something you don't really see very often, right? Because as it rotates from P1 to P2, a lot of teams want to make sure that they're holding down kind of that top catwalk area on the left side of P2, because if you have that, then you have the sticky spawns. And then if you just send one person over towards Burning Car, towards Forklift, where SCUMP is looking on screen right now, then you have control of P2, and you can really take advantage of the rest of those points. But with that, as we're in the second set of rotations here, let's go ahead. The thing I love about Team Scrim is that we can listen and hear exactly what they're talking about. So with that, I'm going to turn up the audio. I'm still going to chime in wherever I feel that it's important, but I do want you to hear their strategy. So with that, let's go ahead. Let's turn up their team comms and take a peek into their team strategy.
I spawned slant.
Yeah, okay, one dead.
Wow. Nice try.
Top green, guys.
Yeah, they got me 2 top L.
Top green dead. One's in time. I'm in green.
We should get out left if you...
Top out,
Right again.
Get out left here.
So right now, SCUMP's just being a nuisance, right? All he wants to do is just try to get kills inside the hill so that when it rotates to P4, they have a presence inside of P4 without giving up the spawns for P5.
Door dead.
That's good time. 10 seconds, guys. I spawned, yeah, they're spawning bottom L, 100%.
They're on top green right now.
You get to my tools?
No.
So now if you're Chicago, you can kind of rotate your strategy a little bit, because since they got the last 15 seconds inside of P3 and they're only 30 points away from winning, now since they don't have spawns for P5, it might not be so important, right? If they can win the majority of the points here, then they're going to end up winning off of this hill.
I'm just trying to stay alive top green. And I got pre-fired. He's hit fire.
Got one.
I'm spawning first.
Got him.
Coming.
I'm one shot. Chow.
They're still spawning there.
Up their door still.
Naded their door. On first, we have your mid.
Stolen door.
I'm watching top green jump if you have their door.
I'm mid door. There should be spawning fire.
Yeah, they're gonna shut their door, Seth.
We have output out.
And with that, that's a really... Oh,
Yo, he out left, he out left.
1 second. I thought that was going to be it. It does look like it's going to rotate one more hard point, but it is what it is. I mean, they have control of spawns. They have the right and the left-hand side of P5 locked down. So as this is about to rotate, there's the final take that it'll go through. And as I was about to say, that hold inside of P4 was super impressive because that's a hill where you have one door to run through, they have one door to run through, so it's hotly contested. The spawns are all right on top of each other. So the fact that they were able to get a ton of points inside of P4 and almost winning on P4, that was a really nice job. That's probably things that you want to see out of Chicago as we move forward here. I do want to go ahead and pause this just so that we can look at the scores. Scump was -1, Formal was +1. Like Arcides was +3, Envoy was +5, Gunless was +3. So basically a well-rounded team effort here, right? It's not like anybody was 40 and 20 or something. If you look down below, Insight was 29 and 23, and again, they're all pretty close. Detain was -10, so that was probably the worst performance on the map. But overall, it was just getting the clutch kills inside the hard point that ended up leading to a Chicago victory. So if you're new around here, this is the first time checking out one of my videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I put out brand new videos just like this every single day. If you have any comments whatsoever, put them in the chat down below. I love the interaction and hearing what you guys have to say. Leave a like before you head on your way. And with that, thank you so much, and I will check you in tomorrow's upload.